Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So welcome once again, dear devotees, to this 36th session on Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. Till now we have covered 35 sessions and we are currently on verse number 7. And we are discussing the Namaparadhas. And before we can move ahead, I would once again like to thank Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu for being such a kind and generous host and such a nice manager of the Upadeshamritam group. Thank you so much, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu, for kindly doing such a wonderful seva for this series of talks on Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam, for which I am very grateful and I really appreciate the seva that you're doing. Thank you so much, Prabhu, once again. And my sincere thanks to all of you devotees who are present here, because the speaker is always expecting a sahridaya, like-minded shrota or an audience. So all of you are sahridaya shrota, that is, you are like-minded audience, and I am really grateful for that. Dear devotees, we are discussing Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamritam, and we have currently reached the 7th verse. Before we continue, once again, I'd like to offer pranam to Sri Rupa Goswami. Ratnakaradyena sudhalpa kumbha avishkritah sostu mahan rameshah yastvatra piyusha rasabdhikarta Sashrila Ruposti Mameshta Devah. The Supreme Lord, Shri Dhanvantari, the husband of Lakshmi, who extracted a small jar of nectar from the large ocean, may certainly be great. However, that personality who ended up creating an entire ocean of nectar, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that personality named Srila Rupa Goswami is certainly my most worshipable deity. Dear devotees, with this verse, we continue our 7th instruction. In the previous talk, I had specified all the 11 instructions from memory, and very soon in the Upadeshamritam group, I will be sending a recording of those 11 instructions so that all of you can also try and record or learn, memorize all of those 11. And I will also specify the meter of each and every instruction so that we will all have an idea of how to sing each and every verse. Plus, I'll send a recording of my voice so that it will help all of you who wish to memorize Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. This is the 7th instruction. Syat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Pittopatapta Rasanasya Narochikanu Kintvadarādanu Dinam Khalu Saiva Jushta Swadvikramad Bhavati Tadgadamula Hantri. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu, can you kindly read the translation?
How amazing! Even though Krishna's names, pastimes, and so on are certainly sweet like sugar candy, they do not appear tasteful to a tongue bittered by the jaundice of beginningless ignorance. However, if that same sugar candy is accepted every day with due respect, then it certainly becomes progressively tasteful and fully destroys that jaundice at its root.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, we were discussing the term adarat, with due respect. But before respect, before we learn how to give respect, we should learn how to avoid disrespect. And we were seeing the various forms of disrespect one of which was Namabhas, and I specified something about Namabhas, and then we came to Namaparadha. Till now, we have covered 4 Namaparadhas. Dear devotees, it is time to move ahead. The 5th Namaparadha is specified by Shri Sanatan Goswami and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. The verse is as follows. Tathartha-vado harinam nikalpanam. So, to imagine Artha-vada in Harinam. Kalpanam, to imagine. To imagine what? Artha-vada in Harinamni, in Harinam. So, this is the 5th Naam Aparadha, dear devotees. Now, this is one way of looking at this particular Naam Aparadha. In the commentary, Shri Sanatan Goswami specifies that actually in this line, we can also read 2 Namaparadhas instead of 1. Tathartha-vado harinamni kalpanam. So instead of reading 1 Namaparadha, we can read 2 separate Namaparadhas in this very line. I have highlighted these 2 using separate colors. So if we take this interpretation, then what will be our translation? Tatha Artha-vadaha. Artha-vada is 1 aparadha, and harinamni kalpanam. Kalpana, to concoct something in relation to Harinam, is another aparadha. So in this way, either this line can mean 1 aparadha or this can indicate 2 aparadhas. Now, which interpretation are we going to take? So we are going to take the interpretation where this line specifies 2 separate aparadhas. So we are going to take the interpretation given below. Even in the list of aparadhas that we have today in English, these 2 are separated out. And I will show them here. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, can you kindly read these 2?
To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination, to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord.
All right. So 5th one is Tatha Artha-vada, and 6th is Harinamni Kalpanam. So in the list that we have today, these 2 are separated out. And these 2 have been separated by the previous acharyas only. So Shri Sanatan Goswami has specified that these 2 can be separated out. We are taking these 2 separately. If we take these 2 separately, the 5th Naam Aparadha will be only Tathartha-vadaha, which means Tatha. Then the next Aparadha is what? Artha-vadaha. To think of Artha-vada in relation to Harinam. So Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, a question naturally arises. Question is, what is Artha-vada? So have you heard this term before, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, can you please give an idea of what is Artha-vada?
It's exaggeration which is given for effect, like if you tell your children, if you eat the spinach, you'll be as strong as Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay. So, Artha-vada is exaggeration. All right. So, this answer is to a certain degree correct. So, we will have to see the exact definition of Artha-vada. And this term Artha-vada has to be understood in its original sources. Where does it originate from? What is the meaning as specified by the experts in those particular fields? So the term Artha-vada comes from study of the Vedas, especially from the Mimamsa tradition. In the Mimamsa tradition, it is specified that in the Vedas there are many types of statements, and one of the type of statement is known as Artha-vada. So in order to understand Artha-vada very easily, we will take the definition as given by those who are expert in defining Artha-vada, those who are expert in Mimamsa. So one of the standard manuals of Mimamsa, one of the beginner's manual of Mimamsa is called as Artha Samgraha. It is by a learned Brahmana named Laugaksi Bhaskara. So Laugaksi Bhaskara defines in Artha Samgraha what is the meaning of Artha-vada. He says, Prashastya Nindanyatara Param Vakyam Artha-vada. Artha-vada refers to Vedic statements dedicated to Prashastya, laudation or praise, or Ninda or denunciation, that is criticism. So Artha-vada is not simply exaggeration of praise. Artha-vada is also exaggeration of criticism of something. So not only if you do something, you will get something, but if you don't do something, you will get a negative result. And when these are, praised very highly or critiqued very highly, they become known as Artha-vada. Now, in order to further understand, we should know that there are three main types of Vedic statements. If you take all the Vedas and all the statements given in the Vedas, so you will get, many types of statements, but all those types of statements can be categorized into three main types. What are the three main types? First is known as Vidhi Vakya, injunction. Vedas will tell you to do something. So the Vedas want us to act, and Vidhi Vakyas tell us what to do. For example, there are statements in the Vedas such as Satyam Vada, speak the truth. Dharmam Chara, walk on the path of Dharma. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, these statements, are they asking us to do something or avoid something?
To do something.
So these are known as Vidhi Vakyas. This is the main type of statement that is found in the Vedas, Vidhi Vakya. Second is Nishedha Vakya, statements that prohibit something. For example, in the Yajurveda it is said, Gam Mahimsi, Mahimsihi, do not commit any violence towards Gam, towards cows. So this is a Nishedha Vakya. So this is the second type of statement found in the Vedas. Then third is Artha-vada. These statements don't tell you to do something directly. These statements don't tell you to prohibit something directly. But these statements indirectly impel us to do something or to prohibit something. I'll give an example of this. For example, in the Rig Veda, it is said, Apama somam amrita abhuma. Apama somam. We drank soma juice, which was extracted in the fire sacrifice and offered to the gods. So we drank the remnants of that soma juice during the fire sacrifice. Amrita abhuma. And we became immortal gods. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, hearing this statement, somebody may become curious. What curiosity may be generated? Can you please tell me?
What will happen to me if I drink soma juice?
And if you try to follow your curiosity, what will you go ahead and do?
Drink soma juice.
But you cannot drink directly. You have to drink it in a fire sacrifice. So what do you have to conduct?
A fire sacrifice.
Yeah, Som Yagya. So the statement is impelling a qualified person to perform Soma Yagya, or a fire sacrifice in which Soma is offered to the gods. So Is this statement directly telling us to do something, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu?
No, Prabhuji.
No. But it is indirectly impelling us. Another statement. This is in the Apastamba Shrauta Sutra. Akshayam havai chaturmasya yajinah sukritam bhavati. Akshayam havai, definitely, infinite, inexhaustible is the merit, sukritam, of whom? Chaturmasya yajinah, of a person who executes fire sacrifice during Chaturmasya, 4 months of the rainy season. So a person who executes fire sacrifice during the 4 months of the rainy season, his pious merit is inexhaustible. Hearing this, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu, what would be the first thing to come to your mind?
I want to do a Chaturmasya Yajna.
Yes. So these statements are indirectly inspiring you. These are called as Stuti Artha-vada. Artha-vada, which praise something. And then the second type of Artha-vada is Ninda Artha-vada. Artha-vada, which critiques something. For example, in the Maitrayani Samhita, it is said, Stayanam mana, the mind is a thief. So, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, hearing this statement, does it mean that, the mind is at all times acting as a thief?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah. But it is giving us a warning to be cautious against the mind. So, dear devotees, in this way, the first statement, Apama somam amrita abhuma. We drank so much juice in the fire sacrifice and we became immortal. So, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu became inspired. He also took Brahmin initiation and executed a fire sacrifice. After that, he drank the soma juice. After a few decades, he left this world. Then people will say, Arey, what happened? He was supposed to become Amrita, which means he was supposed to become immortal. Why did he pass away? Oh, the statement was Artha-vada. Artha-vada means it was not supposed to be literally taken as truth. Shri Sanatana Goswami says in the commentary, Natu vastutah ghatate, doesn't actually happen. But it is supposed to inspire somebody. Or if you would have read the second statement, Akshayam havai chaturmasya yajina sukritam bhavati. Oh, inexhaustible is the merit of the person who executes a fire sacrifice in Chaturmasya. And he executes. And then he finds out he goes to Swarga. But after some time, he comes back to earth because of his merit getting exhausted. Then he may say, oh, what happened? Well, the statement was Artha-vada. Similarly, Stena Manaha, the mind is a thief. Not everybody's mind is a thief. But the statement is Artha-vada. So these statements, dear devotees, are known as Artha-vada. And these statements mainly occur in the Vedas. Mainly in the Vedas. Sometimes, if we simply define what is Artha-vada, so there are 3 characteristics. First is it is a statement mainly in Vedic literature. Secondly, it glorifies an entity or an act, or it critiques an entity or an act. This is what it is. And thirdly, what is the ultimate purpose? The purpose is to engage people in dharma and disengage them from adharma. This is the basic principle of Artha-vada. Now, sometimes Artha-vada statements are also seen in the Puranas. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are actually speaking almost negligible statements of Artha-vada. Because Srimad Bhagavatam mainly glorifies Bhagavan Shri Krishna and bhakti. So those statements can never be Artha-vada. But there are some places in which Srimad Bhagavatam is speaking about topics of the material world. And while speaking about topics of the material world, there are some places where some Artha-vada has been used. For example, in the 5th canto, Jad Bharat ends up saying something. What does he say to Rahugan? अथ च यत्र कौटुम्बिका दारापत्यादयो नाम्ना कर्मणा वृकशृगाला एवानिच्छतोऽपि कदर्यस्य कुटुम्बिन उरणकवत् संरक्ष्यमाणं मिषतोऽपि हरन्ति. Rameshwar Mahaprabhu, Prabhu, can you please read the translation?
Family members, namely wife, children, and so on, are all exactly like wolves and jackals in their activities. They forcibly snatch away a miserly householder's wealth against his will, exactly like a wolf snatches away sheep from a protective herdsman.
So, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, Prabhu, all of us who are married, did we marry human beings or did we marry jackals and wolves?
Human beings, Prabhu.
But the statement says they have all family member, wives, children are exactly like wolves and jackals.
That's a metaphor.
Oh, so it is. Why is it critiquing family members?
Because sometimes family members can take things away unfairly and be very selfish.
Okay, but not everybody's, not everybody's family members are like that. So why is the Srimad Bhagavatam making a general statement?
To discourage us from becoming overly attached to family relations.
Oh, so this is Stuti Artha-vada or Ninda Artha-vada, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu.
This is Ninda Artha-vada.
Wonderful. So this is Ninda Artha-vada, an example. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we won't find any, Artha-vada in regards to Krishna or in regards to Bhakti. But in regards to some topics of the material world, we may find sometimes that some Artha-vada has been used. Because if we start saying that, oh, this applies also to Vaishnava family members. So are Vaishnava family members comparable to wolves and jackals? The answer is no. Similarly, in other Puranas, whenever some statements regarding activities of the material world are described, some piety of this world is described, Artha-vada is sometimes used. For example, in the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, in the Prakrti Khand, there is a dialogue between Yamaraj and Yami, and Yamaraj glorifies Annadan. Annadan means giving a gift of grains. This is the verse glorifying Annadan. Annadanam cha vipraya yah karoti cha bharate anna pramana varsham cha shakraloke mahiyate. A person who gives Annadan, gift of grains, to a Brahmana in Bharatvarsha becomes worshipped in the planet of Indra for as many years as the number of grains he donated. Wow. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, do you want to be worshipped for as many years as the number of grains that you have donated?
Sounds great, Prabhu.
Okay. So it's very simple. Just give Annadan, grains, to a Brahmana in Bharatvarsha. So these statements. Now Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu ended up coming to India, and he ended up giving a big sack of grains to a Brahmana on an auspicious day, Akshay Tritiya. But later he found out that the merit which was received was not according to the merit which was promised. Of course, this was Artha-vada. Dear devotees, there are many statements like this in the Puranas which may seem to be Artha-vada. And now the natural tendency of those who know Artha-vada, now that we know Artha-vada, now our natural tendency is to extend it even within the spiritual domain. And then we come across quotations. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, Prabhu, have you heard that quotation? Anybody who chants Krishna's name only once is immediately liberated. Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, Prabhu, can you please chant Krishna's name once?
Krishna.
All right, Prabhu. Are you liberated?
Not yet.
All right. What happened, Prabhu?
I'm on the path of liberation.
Oh, but somebody may hear this and may think that it is Artha-vada, that the glorification was just a statement of praise, just a statement of exaggerated praise. So somebody may think like that. So even thinking like this is considered to be a Naam Aparadh, dear devotees, when it comes to Harinam. In the same chapter from Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Yamaraj glorifies Bhagwan's Naam. Satatam Shri Harer Naam Bharate yo jape narah sa eva chirajivi syat tato mrityu palayate. Satatam Shri Harer Nama Bharate yo jape narah. A person who constantly chants the name of Hari in Bharatvarsha, sa eva chirajivi syat, becomes immortal. Tato mrityu palayate. Death runs away from him. Now this is in the exact same chapter which described the glories of giving annadan. That was verse number 2. This is verse number 21. Same chapter, verse chapter 27. So somebody may think, well, this is also Artha-vada. But as soon as one thinks about Artha-vada in context of Hari's Naam, Krishna's Naam, it turns into an aparadh, dear devotees. So Artha-vada may be present in many other worldly benefits, or Artha-vada may be present in many other activities pertaining to this world. But Artha-vada is not present when it comes to Hari's Naam. So this we have to understand, dear devotees. Now a question might be asked, why so? Because Hari's Naam is not a product of this particular world. Therefore, it is not governed by the rules of this particular world, dear devotees. The Vedas are mainly specifying rules and regulations for pious activities and impious activities within this world. But they do not extend their domain over Harinam. Since Harinam doesn't fall within the domain of the jurisdiction of the Vedas, so the rules and regulations of Vedas do not apply to Harinam, dear devotees. Therefore, Artha-vada may be present in all other statements of the Vedas, but Artha-vada is not present in Shri Harinam. Let me give an example of a verse which is very interesting and popularly quoted sometimes. This verse is quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Damshtridamshtra hatom lecho harameti punah punah uktvapi muktim apnoti kim punah shraddhaya grinan. Damshtra hatom lecho. Even a mlecha, a Muslim, who is being killed, ahato, by the tusk of a boar, damshtra, and who cries in distress again and again, haram, haram. See, amongst the Muslims, pigs and boars are considered to be haram. So this verse describes a particular pastime where a Muslim was being chased by a wild boar, and the wild boar ended up killing this particular Muslim, mlecha. And before dying, because see, if a Muslim dies while being killed by a pig or a boar, they cannot attain their heavenly pleasures. So he said haram before death, which means this is forbidden, or this is uh, this is unclean for me, haram. So punah he said. So actually, according to the rules of the Muslim religion, he should not have attained his heavenly pleasures. But suddenly he found uktvapi muktim apnoti. He uttered haram, haram, and then he attains liberation. Kim punah shraddhaya grinan. What to speak of those who chant the holy name with veneration and faith. Now, this is an example of Namabhas. Because Namabhas, he's not indicating Bhagwan Ram here, although the name Ram is present in the term Haram. But he is not indicating Bhagwan Ram here. So this is an example of Namabhas. But still he attains liberation. So Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, the Muslim attains liberation by chanting Haram, even once. And we have been chanting 16 rounds or so, as many number of rounds as we have promised our Guru for so many years. But we have not attained liberation. Isn't there a big difference between the case of this particular Muslim and our case?
Yes.
Right. So why does Harinam behave in this way? Why did Harinam give him immediate liberation? And why did Harinam not give us immediate liberation, although we are chanting 16 rounds or so many number of rounds every day? So dear devotees, we have to understand that these statements are not Artha-vada. When Shastra says that he attained liberation, he actually attained liberation. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu chanted Krishna once in front of everybody. Did he attain liberation? He said no. He doesn't feel like it. But Shastra will say, yes, he has attained liberation. Why is it so? So, Sri Sanatana Goswami quotes a verse in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, and this verse is from the Padma Purana. Sakriducharitam yena harir ityaksharadvayam baddha parikarastena mokshaya gamanam prati. Sakriducharitam yena. A person who has once uttered Harir iti aksharadvayam. Aksharadvayam, the two syllables. Ha-ri. Baddha parikarastena. Actually, previously in India, when somebody would go on a long journey, they would have a piece of cloth that they would tie around their waist. That is called parikar bandha. But in the English-speaking world, this is not the case. So I have given an equivalent example. He has rolled up his sleeves to walk on the path of liberation. So Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, what is the meaning of rolling up your sleeves?
Getting ready to do something.
Yeah, getting ready to do something easy or getting ready to do something long and strenuous. So it means getting ready to do something long and strenuous. That is what it means. Sri Jiva Goswami explains by saying, he takes the same verse in his Krama Sandarbha commentary and says, Tatra yogyatayam labdha arambho bhavati iti artha. This means that his eligibility towards liberation has begun. Which means he has rolled up his sleeves to walk on the path of liberation. Anybody who has chanted Krishna's name once, Hari's name once, is liberated. What it means that his eligibility for liberation has begun. I'll explain this with the help of an example. For example, let's say Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu wants to walk from his home all the way to Toronto in Canada. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, is it an easy task or a difficult task?
A difficult task.
Right. How many, will it take a few hours or many days?
Many days.
Many days. All right. Let's say you decided, you rolled up your sleeves and you walked out of your home and you have just gone to the next street, walk to the next street. Now I come to your home, I ring the bell and I say, where is Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu? And the reply comes, well, he's gone to Canada. He's gone to Toronto. But have you gone to Toronto or are you simply on the next street?
Simply on the next street.
So, but while saying, people end up saying, oh, he went to Toronto. So similarly, Sri Jiva Goswami says, many verses which glorify Harinam, simply on chanting one Harinam, a person becomes liberated. A Muslim who chanted haram, haram attains liberation. Attains liberation, what does it mean? It means labdha arambho bhavati iti artha. It means he is just on the corner right now. There's a long way to reach Toronto, dear devotees. So this is what it means. But while saying, Shastra will say, oh, he went to Toronto. Oh, he got liberated. So this is what is the meaning of such statements. So these statements are not false. They are not Artha-vada, over exaggerations. They are describing the truth, but some time is required in order to realize this particular truth. So dear devotees, this is the case. Now we might have heard of many statements, not only in relation to Harinam, but in relation to all activities of bhakti, all limbs of bhakti. There is one statement which is popularly quoted. Rathe tu vamanam drishtva punarjanma na vidyate. Anybody who sees Lord Jagannath sitting on the chariot doesn't have, does not attain rebirth again in this world. So Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, every year there is Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra, and millions of people end up seeing, Jagannath's Rath Yatra on television. So does it mean that all of them got liberated?
Yes.
Okay, but it seems that many of them will end up taking another birth. So how do we understand?
They've taken up the path of transcending repeated birth and death.
Wonderful. So they have rolled up their sleeves, or they have performed parikar bandha. The statement is not Artha-vada. But when it comes to material karma kanda, those statements may be Artha-vada. For example, you may give a whole sack of grains to a Brahmana, but in your next life, you may not get the result. Dear devotees, that is Artha-vada. But when it comes to Hari Naam, when it comes to any devotional activity, Artha-vada is not there in the Vedas or Puranas. Dear devotees, this is the conclusion that we have to understand. Srila Rupa Goswami knows that in the Vedas and Puranas, etc., many benefits have been promised for performing acts of bhakti. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, haven't you heard? Anybody who executes this Ekadashi becomes a king for millions of years. Have you heard such types of statements?
Yes.
So this statement is regarding Ekadashi. It is not about Harinam. What about statements for other limbs of bhakti, which promise material results? Sri Rupa Goswami knows these things. Sri Rupa Goswami composes a verse in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu specifically to speak about this point. What does he say? Kesham chit kvachidanganam yat kshudram shruyate phalam bahir mukha pravrityaitat kintu mukhyam phalam ratihi. Kesham chit kvachid anganam. For executing some limbs of bhakti, he had specified 64 limbs. So for amongst them, some limbs, yat kshudram shruyate phalam. Some trivial result, some trivial reward have been promised for some of these limbs. Like you will become a king, or you will get all the heavenly cows, and you will get all the pleasures of planet Earth. So yat kshudram shruyate phalam. All these trivial rewards have been promised. Rupa Goswami trivializes those results. Why? Because devotees trivialize even the happiness of impersonal liberation. What to speak of the happiness, other trivial rewards. So Rupa Goswami says, Bahirmukha pravritya etat. One should know that such rewards come to those who practice bhakti in a bahirmukh, shallow, extrinsic manner. So there are some people who practice bhakti not for attaining pure bhakti. Some people practice bhakti simply for getting some reward. So such rewards come to those people who are practicing bhakti in a bahirmukha or shallow, extrinsic manner. But kintu, however, for those who execute bhakti in an antarmukha, deep or intrinsic manner, mukhyam phalam ratihi, the main result is obtained. And what is the main result? Ratihi. Rati is bhava bhakti is attained for them. Some commentators say even if somebody starts as a bahirmukha, gradually they will also attain rati. Gradually they will also become pure devotees. So dear devotees, whenever we hear of the results of Ekadashi, etc. For example, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu heard that, on following this Ekadashi, you will become a Chakravarti Samrat, a king, of the entire earth. Now, on hearing this statement, if you are an Antarmukha devotee, if you are an intrinsic deep devotee, would you want to gain such a result?
No.
No. So, since you do not want that result, the result will not forcibly come to you. So, instead, what result will you get, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu?
Rati or Bhava Bhakti.
Yeah. So, Bhava Bhakti is the result that will be obtained in this case. So, in the case of devotees who are Antarmukha, deep and intrinsic, they attain Bhava Bhakti. And Bhakti sometimes also promises some shallow results. Some acts of Bhakti promise some shallow results. These are for the Bahirmukha people, or those who are executing Bhakti in a shallow and extrinsic manner. So, dear devotees, this was Namaparadha number 5, that is Artha-vada. The sum and substance of this Namaparadha is that there may be exaggerations in many Vedic statements, in many Puranic statements, but there is no exaggeration Artha-vada when it comes to Harinam or the glories of Harinam, dear devotees. This is what is the meaning of Artha-vada. Having explained this, we will move ahead to the 6th Namaparadha. Harinam Nikalpanam. To concoct something in relation to Harinam is another aparadha. Now, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu, he said to imagine, to give an interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, how many times have you given an interpretation to Hare Krishna Mahamantra in your life?
Many times.
You tried to give a new meaning to Hare Krishna Mahamantra?
Not a new meaning, but what's given by Shastra and our acharyas.
That is allowed. No, it says to, to give a new concocted meaning. So have you ever tried to give a new interpretation, concocted interpretation to Hare Krishna Mahamantra?
No, Prabhuji.
So then this aparat doesn't apply to you. Dear devotees, all of you can raise your hand on Zoom. How many of you have tried to give an interpretation to Hare Krishna Mahamantra till today? Please raise your hands. Your own interpretation, not Acharya's interpretation. Not any, try to give a brand new understanding of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. All right. So amongst, there are 1 or 2 individuals who have raised their hands. Majority of them have not tried to give an interpretation to Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So what is the exact meaning of this? So the exact meaning of this is, there are 2 meanings. First is to give some artificial interpretation of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This we understand. But there is also another meaning to this. What is the meaning of this Namaparad? Shri Sanatan Goswami explains in the commentary. Hari namni kalpanam cha tan mahatmya artha parityagena durbuddhya vritha arthantara kalpana cha eko aparadha iti artha. He says to concoct something in relation to Harinam is another aparadha. This means that one gives up the essential glories of Harinam and with one's polluted intelligence cooks up some concoction in relation to that Harinam. What does this mean? This means that Harinam has a certain glory, dear devotees. And some person, instead of focusing on those glories, uses his intelligence to crookedly come up with some artificial rule or regulation in respect to Harinam, which is not mentioned in Shastra. I will give an example of this. For example, once I was, this was around the year 2006, I was undergoing brahmachari training. And once I went to the office where I saw there was something stuck on the notice board. A brand new, article was printed and stuck on the notice board. When I went there, I carefully looked at the notice board and I saw the article said 100 offenses to chanting Hare Krishna. 100 offenses. I had heard of only 10 offenses. So I carefully looked at the list of offenses. So one of the offenses was to rub your nose with your weed bag while you are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So when I heard this, I said, some new Sanatan Goswami has appeared in the world who is now giving, extra Namaparadhas for the 21st century. Then I called that particular devotee and I said, well, from where did you get this list of 100 offenses to the holy name? He said, I have observed in many devotees that they are doing all these things. So I have compiled this list of offenses. And I said, Acha. And what will happen if somebody commits these offenses? He said, they will not be able to get Krishna Prem. I said, wonderful. So this is when somebody has made an imagination, kalpanam, in relation to Harinam, something which is not there in Shastra, dear devotees. This is called Harinamni Kalpanam. Actually speaking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said very clearly, and this is the second verse of the Shikshashtakam, Naam Naam Akari Bahudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrar Pita Niyamitah Smaranena Kalaha. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, most devotees sing this every morning. And what is the translation?
No fixed rules have been framed in relation to remembrance of Bhagavan's Nama.
Right. And having said this every morning, why do many of us then start making up rules and regulations in relation to Bhagavan's Naam? Many of us might have heard something like this or might have said something like this. If you don't chant in a certain way, you will not get Krishna Prem. Some of us say, if you don't chant all your rounds while sitting down in a single place, then forget about attaining Krishna. Some others say, if you don't chant all your rounds before 7 o'clock in the morning, then forget about attaining Krishna Prem. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, are all of these statements rooted in Shastra or are they rooted in somebody's imagination?
They're rooted in someone's imagination.
But then somebody forcibly ascribed these imaginations to Bhagavan's Naam. That if you don't chant before a certain time, if you don't chant in a certain sitting posture, you will not get the result. We can give recommendations that it is recommended to chant in a single sitting. It is recommended to chant in the early morning hours. But as soon as we turn them into vidhis or rules, then we are doing Harinamni Kalpanam. Because if there is no vidhi or no rule given in Shastra, we are not supposed to imagine any vidhi or any rule in relation to Shri Harinam. And anybody who tries to imagine rules or imagine regulations in relation to Bhagavan's Naam immediately falls victim to Harinamni Kalpanam. I distinctly remember previous year, this was 2022, when I visited the United States. In one particular city, there was one devotee lady, one Mataji, who came and said, I want to speak something. I said, okay, please come along with your Prabhu, along with your husband, and you can say whatever you want to say. So the husband and wife were sitting, and she said, she was almost on the verge of crying. And I said, why are you crying? She said, because I cannot go back home, back to Godhead in this life. I said, why is it so? Well, because I have two kids. One is 3-year-old and the younger one is just 1 year old. And in the morning, the younger kid is crying sometimes, and the 3-year-old is playing around sometimes crying. I cannot take care of both of them simultaneously while chanting my Naam. So therefore, I am not able to chant my rounds before 7 o'clock. And I have heard in a lecture that if you don't chant before 7 o'clock, you cannot attain Krishna Prem. So as soon as I heard this, I said, Mataji, I'm sorry, but where is it specified in Shastra that you have to chant all your rounds before 7 o'clock in the morning? When Shastra was written, was time classified as 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock? First and foremost. Dameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu, what is the time for Mangal Arti?
About 4 a.m.
And when this was after clocks came, before clocks came,
The
500 years
Brahma
ago.
Muhurta.
All right, the Brahma Muhurta. And Brahma Muhurta was decided according to like the strict, German time of the needle of a clock, or how was it decided during those times?
You knew when the sun rose, and it would be about 90 minutes before that.
Yeah. So there were no minutes. there's no concept of minutes at that time. How would you calculate Brahma Muhurta? So dear devotees, around that time, around the time of Brahma Muhurta, around the approximate time, devotees will gather together. And when all the prominent devotees have gathered together, they will start Mangalarti. This was how it used to happen in earlier times. Dameshwar Mahaprabhu, what according to you is the first activity that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to do at the beginning of the day? What is the first thing that Mahaprabhu did?
I don't know, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, it's very simple. He must have gotten up and put his hand in his bead bag and chanted his rounds. What do you think?
Either that or a bath.
Okay. After taking his bath, what is the first thing? And what time, Prabhu, do you think he got up in the morning?
Brahma Muhurta.
Brahma Muhurta. Wonderful. Let's hear from Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur about the time of waking up of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was in Navadvip. This is Arunodaya Kirtan. Udilo Aruna Purab Bhage Dvijamani Gora Amani Jage. So Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu, the first verse is, Prabhu, please read.
When the eastern horizon became tinged with the redness that heralds the rising sun, the jewel among the Brahmanas, Lord Gaurasundara, immediately awakened.
Wait. When did Mahaprabhu awaken? After sunrise? What time will it be,
After
Prabhuji?
sunrise. Probably like 7.
My goodness. Is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a bona fide devotee?
Yes.
All right. But he wakes up after sunrise. Udilo Aruna Purava Bhage. First the sunrise occurred. And then Dvija Mani Gora. And then the crest jewel amongst the Brahmanas. Sri Gaurachandra awakened. So the first activity then, what he did is Bhakata Samuha Laiya Sate, taking devotees with him, Gela Nagara Braje. He journeyed through the towns and villages of Nadia. And the first thing is Tathai Tathai Bajalakol. The Mridanga sounded Tathai Tathai, and the cymbals, kartals in that kirtan played in time. So the first activity that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed in morning was Hari Naam Sankirtan, Yuga Dharma, dear devotees. And this Hari Naam Sankirtan was performed after sunrise. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu woke up after sunrise. Why did he wake up late? The answer is because previous night Kirtan was going very late. The previous night Kirtan ended at around midnight, around that time. So it was late in the previous night. Therefore, all the devotees were resting. And since all the devotees were resting, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also got up at a time which was convenient for all the devotees to wake up. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the home of each and every devotee and did not chastise any devotee for, sleeping till that. He went to each and every devotee's home, told everybody to wake up, and then ensured that everybody has taken a bath, and then taking all of them together. When all of them were there together, then he started Harinam. So, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood and behavior, dear devotees. Now, if we go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and ask him a question, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, did you chant your 16 rounds before 7 o'clock? If not, then you cannot attain Krishna Prema. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will immediately say, Harinam ni kalpanam. Are, don't put your imaginations on Shri Harinam. So this is what it is, dear devotees. We should never try to superimpose our imaginations or our rules on Bhagavan's Naam. Shri Sanatan Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami say in Hari Bhakti Vilas, Na desha niyamastasmin, na kala niyamastatha, nochhishtadau nishedhosti, Shri Harer Naam nilubdhaka. They quote a verse from the Puranas. O Lubdhaka, O hunter, na desha niyamastasmin. There are no rules regarding time, place, etc. Na kala niyamastatha, regarding Hari's Naam. Nor are there any restrictions, nishedha, about chanting it in an impure state of existence. So there are, this verse very clearly says, Desha niyama, kala niyama. There is no desha niyama, there is no rule regarding place, there is no kala niyama, there is no rule regarding time when it comes to Hari's Naam. Then why is it so that devotees often say that you should chant in the morning, you should chant all your rounds together? So these should be taken as recommendations. These are not rules. These should be taken as recommendations, especially if the recommendation is coming from one's Gurujanas, then they should be taken very seriously. Because by hearing such verses, somebody may say, well, very nice. Now I will chant Shirshasana with my head down and my feet up in the middle of the night. Yeah? Because there are no hard and fast rules to chanting Harinam. Now I will not take a bath for 10 days and I will chant Harinam. Arey, no, not like that. Some recommendations are there. Why? Why should I follow recommendations? Arey, didn't you read Upadeshamritam? Sangatyagat sato vritte, follow the conduct of the sadhus. Shadvir bhakti prasidhyati. These 6 activities will help you in your bhakti. Sato vritti, follow the lifestyle of the sadhus. So recommendations are made, but recommendations should not be turned into hard and fast rules. What is a hard and fast rule? If you don't do this, you will not attain. When you turn it into a statement like that, this is called hard and fast rule. But you can always give a recommendation to devotees. It is recommended to chant in the early morning hours. It is recommended to chant in one place. And while giving such recommendations also, please keep the weakest person in your mind in the assembly. Sometimes, some individuals, they are speaking in a large assembly, they are giving a lecture to a large assembly. And while giving a lecture to the large assembly, they think that they should speak to the strongest person in the assembly. Unfortunately, this is not how it should be done. We should speak to the weakest person in the assembly. In my childhood, in one of the textbooks, I read something known as Gandhi's talisman. Talisman means Gandhi's mantra. And this is a very nice talisman or a very nice mantra. That mantra means advice which Gandhi gave. Srila Prabhupada, he did not like some, Bhagavad Gita interpretations of Gandhiji, but he often liked Gandhi for his traditional ideas of villages, etc. So there is one talisman or one advice which Gandhi gave, and this advice is in front of us. So, Prabhu, can you read the highlighted portion?
I will give you a talisman. Whenever you are in doubt, or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and weakest man or woman whom you may have seen, and ask yourself, if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him or her.
Yes. So although he was speaking of this in a political context, this is also very relevant to those who are speaking about spiritual life to others. When we are speaking to a large assembly, are we supposed to address the strongest person in the assembly, or are we supposed to make it relevant to the weakest person in the assembly? So we are supposed to make it relevant to the weakest person, because sometimes we are giving lofty instructions on Harinam. Oh, you should sit in one place and you should chant every round before 7 o'clock. And then there may be pregnant ladies in the assembly. What about them? There may be people who are working night shifts. Night shifts means they work throughout the night and then they go to sleep at around 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning. What about those individuals? Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, should such individuals be able to attain Krishna Prema or not?
Yes.
For this reason, there are no hard and fast rules. Therefore, we should always give recommendations and not make any artificial, imagined, cooked up rule in relation to Shri Harinam. This is what is the meaning of Harinamni Kalpanam. That one cooks up an artificial rule or regulation in regards to Shri Harinam, which is not mentioned in Shastra. And then one gives it as a hard and fast rule. If you don't do this, then you will not attain this. If you don't do that, you will not attain that. This is what is the aparadha. Sometimes some individuals, they superimpose the rules of mantra on Naam, because there is a difference between the term mantra and the term Naam. Mantra refers to Gayatri mantra or mantras which have these bijas in the beginning, Klim, Om, etc. They have rules for, those mantras have rules for japa. For example, when we see somebody chanting Gayatri mantras in our society, when we see somebody chanting Gayatri mantras, do they chant while walking, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, or do they chant in one fixed place?
In one fixed place.
So there is a rule for chanting Gayatri. There is a rule for chanting mantra. But there are no rules for chanting Naam. Unfortunately, some individuals take rules for mantra and superimpose them on Naam. There is a difference between Naam and mantra, and this difference is clarified by Acharya Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhuji, can you kindly read what he says in his commentary to Chaitanya Bhagavata, Madhya Khanda, 23rd chapter, verse 81. Please read, Prabhuji.
Any mantra that starts with a bija, Om, Klim, etc., and ends in the fourth dative case, Krishnaya, Shivaya, or any mantra that starts with Om and ends in the fourth dative case, should not be chanted loudly. But Nama, or the vocative form of names, as well as mantras that do not include bija or Om, and which end not in the fourth dative case, but with the word Namaha, can be chanted loudly. For example, Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha is chanted loudly.
All right. So there is a difference between the term Naam and the term mantra. And mantra is a secret incantation given by the guru to the disciple. That is what mantra is. And for mantra, there are rules. For mantra japa, there are rules. You have to sit at one place, you have to be quiet, you have to chant it silently. Please don't impose those rules on Naam japa, on Nama Kirtan, because those rules don't apply to Nama japa and Nama Kirtan. When it comes to Nama japa, we can give recommendations, but we cannot make them into rules. Now somebody may say, well, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is also Naam, but it is Maha Mantra. So why not, follow the rules of chanting for Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, because it is also specified as a mantra. So Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu, from which literature did we get the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? Can you please tell me?
The Kali Santarana Upanishad.
Oh, wonderful. So, the Kali Santarana Upanishad, Narad Muni, after Brahma, this is a discussion between Shri Brahma, Bhagwan Brahma and Narad Muni. Narad Muni asks a question to Bhagwan Brahma after the discussion. Bhagwan Brahma gives him the mantra, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and then Narad Muni says, Punar Naradaha Papracha Bhagavan ko asya vidhi. Narad Muni asked again, Bhagavan, oh Bhagavan Brahma. See, he addressed Brahmaji as Bhagavan. Oh Bhagavan Brahma. Ko asya vidhi. What are the rules for chanting this Mahamantra? The reply came, Tam ho vacha nasya vidhiriti. Bhagavan Brahma said, there are no rules for it. This is given right there in Kali Santarana Upanishad. Dear devotees, the literature from where the Mahamantra has originated for all of us in this world. Actually, the Mahamantra is from the spiritual world, but in this world, it has come to us through the literature named Kali Santarana Upanishad. In this world, it has come through this literature, and this literature, Vidhi, one meaning of Vidhi is Brahma. Brahma or Vidhi himself is saying that there is no Vidhi. So who is there to sit on top of Vidhi and say that there is Vidhi in Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Can somebody sit on top of Brahma and say, now I am the new Vidhi, and now I will give a Vidhi where Vidhi has not given a Vidhi. I will give a new Vidhi. Can somebody say like this? So nobody can say like this. So there are no rules for chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, dear devotees. In this way, we have to understand that even though Hare Krishna is known as a mantra, but in the literature which specified Hare Krishna mantra, the literature itself said that there are no vidhis. And what to speak of Naam? For Naam, there are no vidhis, dear devotees. But doesn't mean that we should carelessly, inattentively, and recklessly chant Naam. Although Namabhas will also give its, it has its potency, it will have its effect. But recommendations by sadhus should be followed. And even if sometimes we are not able to follow recommendations, still Hari Naam can, give its benefit to anyone at any point of time. One final thing which I would like to say, and some devotees often do this, is a concept named Sankhya-vad. Now this concept, Sankhya-vad, means numerical strength. Now this name Sankhya-vad is not from previous literature. I have given this name by observing some phenomena recently. Sankhya-vad. I'm not giving a rule. I've just given a small name. Sankhya-vad. What is Sankhya-vad? Some devotees tell others that unless you chant certain number of rounds, you cannot attain Krishna Prem. So this is called Sankhya-vad. And based on their experience, they start pushing other devotees. So this, unfortunately, in some circles of devotees, has become a problem. Because of peer pressure, certain devotees then try to artificially increase their rounds. And because of artificially increasing their rounds, one of the two conditions breaks. Adarat anudinam. Either the adar is lost or anudinam is lost. There was one devotee who took a vow on Nirjala Ekadashi, I will chant 192 rounds. And after I heard 192 rounds he will chant, so I said, best of luck. But how many rounds are you chanting right now? He said 16 rounds. I said, okay, on Nirjala you're taken a vow of chanting 192. Yes. And not only did he take a personal vow, he was also pressurizing others to do so. So many other devotees took up the vow of chanting 192 rounds on Nirjala Ekadashi. This was many years ago. And many devotees chanted under peer pressure. But they chanted only on that day. After that day, for many months, they were nowhere to be seen around the temple, their devotees. So Anudinam was lost. And even those who chanted 192, there is a big question as to how many were able to chant their rounds with adar, with due respect. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada gives a very important instruction that we should try to avoid Sankhya-vad in Naam. This is what Srila Prabhupada says. The Goswamis, they kept a number, a numerical strength. Haridas Thakur kept the biggest. Others, they also kept, but not so big. But because just like Rupa Goswami, he had to write so many books. So he was not keeping such a big number as 3 lakhs. But there was some numerical, similarly, we must have some numerical strength. And we have minimized. I know that you are coming from a different source. So according to time, according to circumstances, even there is no limit. You can chant more than 1600 times. There is no, but practically we see that even chanting 16 rounds becomes difficult. So don't try to imitate, but do it properly. What is advised by your spiritual master without any offense. That mantra will save you from the dangers of Maya. That's a fact. So Srila Prabhupada very clearly recommended us to chant what has been advised by our Guru. Some Gurus, because different Vaishnavas belong to different institutions, some Vaishnavas have been told by their Gurus, you chant 4 rounds. And in some institutions, Diksha happens at 4 rounds. In some institutions, Diksha happens at 16 rounds. So whatever has been advised by one's Guru, one should chant. Nameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu, how many mantras does one need, minimum number of mantras does one need to chant in order to get the result?
There is no minimum. One name.
One name is the minimum. And how many mantras maximum to chant, but still one will not receive Krishna Prem? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Bahu janme kari yadi shravan kirtan. One may chant for many lifetimes. Tabu tana paye Krishna pade prema dhana. He will still not attain Krishna Prem if he is having offenses or another. If he is chanting with disrespect, he will not attain even for lifetimes. So dear devotees, please try to avoid kalpana dosh, to try to superimpose any artificial rules and regulations on Harinam which are not mentioned in Shastra. All our favorite rules should be, all our favorite sets of practices should be given as recommendations, not as rules, and only to those who are receptive. And kindly try to avoid Sankhya-vad in Harinam. We can encourage devotees according to their situation to chant more, but we should never pressurize anybody for chanting more. Neither should we say that unless you chant a certain number of rounds, you cannot attain Krishna Prem or you cannot go back home, back to Godhead. Dear devotees, this is the sum and substance of the 6th aparadh, Hari Namni Kalpanam. Finally, dear devotees, even one utterance is enough. Shri Sanatan Goswami and Gopal Bhatt Goswami say in Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sakridapi Parigitam Shraddhaya Helayava Bhriguvara Naramatram Tarayet Krishna Nama. Bhriguvara, oh best amongst Bhrigus, if Krishna's name is sung even once, Sakridapi, even once, Shraddhaya, with faith, or Helayava, or with indifference, Naramatram Tarayet, it delivers all human beings. Dear devotees, this is the potency of Shri Harinam. Sakridapi Parigitam. Even if it is sung once, it will give the result. But to some, it may not give immediate result. Why? Because just as I said, somebody has begun a long journey to Toronto, might have just reached the corner of the street. So to some, it may give immediate result. To some, it may not give. Harinam is independent. It makes its own decisions. It is as independent as the Supreme Lord Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Therefore, it has its own willpower to give results. With this, I would like to conclude this talk with a very nice verse from a very nice commentary in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 10th canto, there is the pastime where Bhagavan Shri Krishna is attacked by Putana, and he ends up killing Putana. And after the gopis see Bhagavan on the dead body of Putana, they are afraid that, she might have hurt him. So Mother Yashoda, she takes Krishna in her lap, and the gopis, they apply tilak of Bhagavan Vishnu on the body parts of Krishna. And while applying tilak, they utter the names of Bhagavan. Keshavaya Namah, Govindaya Namah, Trivikramaya Namah. They apply tilak like this. At this point of time, the Vaishnav commentator Sri Harisuri, he comments and he says, Bhagavan swadapekshaya shaktis tavanamni prabaleti manmahe trijagat krita rakshanasya tepi yadabhudrakshanakāri gokule. Bhagavan, tvad apekshayapi shaktis. It is now proved that your names have greater power than you. Why? Because you may be the protector of the three worlds. But when it came to protecting you, the gopis ended up using your name for protecting you in Gokula. Oh Bhagavan, this is a very clear indication that your Naam is more powerful than you. So this, dear devotees, is the attitude of the Vaishnavas towards Sri Harinam. With this, we have successfully completed the discussion of 6 Namaparadhas. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Yadatra skhalitam kinchit vidvam sah purayantu tat. Yadatra saushthavam kinchit tad guroreva me nahi. Yadatra skhalitam kinchit. If there were any mistakes in what I spoke, vidvamsa, you are all learned individuals. Purayantu tat. Please correct any mistakes. But yadatra saushthavam kinchit. If there's anything nice in the presentation, please know. Tad guroreva. It belongs to my Gurujanas. Me nahi. It doesn't belong to me. Thank you very much once again, dear devotees. Thank you, Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for another really pertinent and enlightening class. We're so lucky to be here because guidance is one of the most important things in spiritual life, and sometimes we can get misguidance. But I have very much trust in you, Prabhuji, because you always stick very close to the Shastra and the Acharyas. And
Thank you, Prabhu.
also you have practical experience how to apply these things. So we'll go now to questions and answers. Please focus on today's class. We don't want to name any individuals or institutions. And what's the last one? I forgot again. There's 3 things.
Yeah, and try not to ask multiple questions at a time. We wait for your turn if you want to ask.
Yeah, so try to keep it concise so there's time for other people.
Yeah.
And we'll start with Bhavya Bhagavan Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Naam, thank you for your class, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I just wanted to understand one thing. Like sometimes we often hear that when somebody's ashes are mixed in Ganges water, then that person attains heaven, right? Goes to Swargaloka. Now, Ganga Devi is associated with Lord Vishnu's lotus feet. She's emanating from there. So she has connection with the Lord. So can we say this that it's also related to devotional service, and then whatever is spoken in the Puranas about glories of Ganga Devi will come true for anybody whosoever gets in contact with Ganga Devi, Prabhuji.
See, the promise of Swarga is a promise of this world. So when it is said that a particular person attains Swarga, the promise given to me, the promise given to them is a promise of this particular world. So it is dependent upon the desire of Ganga Devi. To some individuals she may give, to some individuals she may not give, because she is also Bhagavan Shakti. She has the power to decide. So this is what can be said regarding such statements in the Puranas. So that is what I would like to say.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Ram.
Next we have Madhav Tripati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. Prabhuji, I just wanted to get a little clarification on something. So whenever Shastra glorifies something material, so that can be under the category of Artha-vada, because let's say if they're comparing some woman in let's say Srimad Bhagavatam is being compared, her eyes are like lotus petals. So that might be Artha-vada, but when Krishna is being when he is being compared to a lotus, that is under glorification. That's not over glorification. So is that the right understanding, Prabhuji?
Yeah. So some ladies may genuinely be as beautiful in the material world. So if such ladies are being compared, their eyes are being compared to lotuses, it's not Artha-vada. But if sometimes Shastra may compare, sometimes Shastra may give exaggerated glorifications of beauty for worldly people, that is definitely Artha-vada. But in case of Krishna, there is no Artha-vada, because Shastra is not exaggerating when it is describing the beauty of Krishna. So that is a correct understanding. Right. Thank you.
Next we have Dipayan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much again for today's class. My question is, there was this discussion about Naam giving mukti, and you covered that very nicely, showing Jiva Goswami's, Shri Jiva Goswami and Shri Sanatan Goswami's explanation about the liberation. So my question is like related to this. Sometimes some statements are there, like for Naam you covered, but some other statements about benefit of bhakti, if it is being described, and we have also learned that there is a mukhya vritti and there is gauna vritti, the direct understanding, and sometimes an like we may not take the direct meaning because it's like that village on Ganga example is given. So how do we understand when to take mukhya vritti and when not to take mukhya vritti? If you can explain something.
This question is slightly vague. You did not specify which example. So I'm not, for
if
every...
Chaitanya Charitamrita is, if Chaitanya Charitamrita is saying that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given prema to so many people,
they're
to
on
the
the
whole
path.
world, or if he is giving prema to the whole,
So they're on the path.
So
They're
we are not taking the mukhya vritti in that case.
See, the thing is, if you take the mukhya vritti, then the universe will become empty, because then nobody will have. But after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world, did jivas take rebirth in this world? Yes or no? Dipan Prabhu?
I don't know. I don't know. It's past, right?
But did the universe become empty after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or were there jivas in the universe after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Did not become empty, surely. But there is one more purport in Bhagavatam where
all right.
Prabhupada says
just a minute.
That even if it becomes,
Just a minute. Did Lord Brahma leave the universe, or is he still here? Please tell me.
No, I don't think so. Okay.
So the universe didn't become empty. So you have to understand those statements not in a direct way. Those statements have to be interpreted by understanding that all the living entities who came in contact with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or his representatives, directly or indirectly, have started walking on the path. That's why how Sri Jiva Goswami explains it, right? That's what will make logical sense. Otherwise, we will not be able to make logical sense out of the sentences that are given in Shastra. So it's important to not see the statements of Shastra only with an eye of emotion. It's also important for them to make logical sense to us. Otherwise, simply on the strength of emotion, we might end up making any big statements. But it also has to have some, it has to have some root in logic and at least some rationale by which it can be explained. Right? So this is the answer to your question.
Okay. Thank you.
Next we have Ananga Mohan Prabhu. You're unmuted, Prabhuji. Ananga Mohan Prabhu? Okay. I guess we'll come back to you.
Sure.
Is that him? Okay. Next we have Vishwadeep Roy Prabhu.
Prabhuji, am I audible?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the class. with more classes, all the statements are becoming so clear now. It's really crystal clear, all the Namaparadhas. So my question is, today we have mentioned the verse of Damshti Damshtra Hatom Litso, and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the purport, Prabhupada has given that it is taken from Narsimha Purana. And but this that haram part, it is if it is written in Puran, but the Muslim people, the haram term came after the writing of that Puran. So how it is written before only that haram, or Nasimha Puran was written later? This is my question.
We are assuming that the term came only with the origin of the Muslims. This we are assuming. So the term might have existed much before them. In the Mahabhashya, Patanjali specifies that the Asuras, they speak words. And what words does he speak? He says, Hela, Hela, which specifies very close to what we say hello, basically. But does it mean that Patanjali knew English? No, English adapted some of the words that were present in previous languages. So that is what Patanjali says at this point. So similarly, there might be languages prior to the languages used by the Muslims, and those languages might have had similar words. So that is what might have been used by Shri Vyasadeva when he was composing Narsimha Purana. That is the answer to your question. All right.
Thank you.
Another explanation is that since Shri Vyasadeva is Trikalakya, or he can also see the future, so from that point of view, he has written. So this is another explanation. All right. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Next we have, who's the Prabhuji who raised their hand? Oh, Nangamohan Prabhu. You want to give it another shot? I just asked to unmute. Here we go.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhuji, when attending the calls of nature, there is one pastime quoted of Gopal Guru Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where it is said that even while during the passing of stool and this, one can chant the Harinam. And I heard one Acharya of some different Sampradaya is quoting that one should not chant audibly the Harinam while doing these nature calls, but should remember in mind. So, how? Because as per Shastra, it is instructed that one should not speak something during this. So, what is the understanding on this?
See, I'm not sure where this particular Vaishnava you are speaking about, where they got their idea from. But when I spoke in the class, I was very clear about the sources, from where the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are getting their understanding. So the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are getting their understanding from Hari Bhakti Vilas. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, it has been very, very clearly specified. I will, specify a verse from Hari Bhakti Vilas once again, which is a very clear indicator of, what is the Gaudiya Vaishnava position. This is Hari Bhakti Vilas, 11th Vilas. I had quoted this particular verse, Na Desha Niyamas Tasmin Na Kala Niyamas Tatha. This I had quoted in the presentation. Next verse, Chakrayudhasya Namani. Chakrayudha is the name of Bhagavan Vishnu. So Tasya Namani, his names, Sada Sarvatra Kirte, should be chanted everywhere and at all times. Na Ashaucham Kirtane Tasya. There is no consideration of impurity in performing his audible Kirtan. Sa Pavitra Karoyatah, because he himself is the one who purifies. So how can one remain impure while performing his Kirtan? So this is what it is. All right. So in the commentary, यथा च आचमनादि व्यतिरेकेण अशुद्धस्य श्री यमुनादि जलाचमनादिनैव शुद्धः यथा च तत्र अशुद्धेन कथं श्री यमुनादि जलं स्पृष्टव्यम् इति शंका न संभवेत् अनन्यगतित्वात्. So basically, a person does not, while performing Yamuna Achman, there is no consideration of, clean or unclean. An unclean person performs Achman. So similarly, Achman purifies an unclean person. Similarly, Hari's Naam or Hari purifies an unclean person. There is no consideration of that. It is very clearly given in Hari Bhakti Vilas that there are no such considerations, and I have specified with the shloka. So you can have this understanding based on the verse that is given. Since this is rooted in Shastra and since this is rooted in the Puranas, this is a very clear understanding regarding Bhagavan's Naam. So I have specified. All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next we have Radhika Vallabha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Hari Parshatru, very beautiful class. I had a few doubts about this Artha-vada, the Srimad Bhagavatam regarding these examples. One is Chitraketu Maharaj described as having 1 crore wives. For this example, another example we have in some places in the Bhagavatam where say Urvashi describes about the nature of the women, or Mohini Murti describes about the nature of the women. The third is that the dimensions of the different planetary systems in the 5th canto, say for example distance between earth and moon or other dimension. So these things, all these three, whether the general statement about the nature of the woman or 1 crore wives or these dimensions, can they be taken as a Artha-vada? How do we, and what is the say any general criteria, pointers by which we can understand something is an Artha-vada? So these three categories are mainly related to the material world also.
Right. So when Srimad Bhagavatam in general critiques, a particular section of humans, it critiques women or it may critique all men. So obviously not all women and not all men will fall into that category. But why is it critiquing all women or why is it critiquing all men? To warn the sadhaka, against some possibilities that may occur. So therefore some ninda has been done. Some ninda Artha-vada has been resorted to. But does it mean that the statements are applicable even in the case of women or men who are devotees? Obviously not. The Srimad Bhagavatam itself specifies Sanghaya Samsriter Hetu. I will quote this verse and I will share this verse. This is from the 3rd canto, 23rd chapter, 55th verse. Sango yah samsriter hetur asatsu vihito adhiya sa eva sadhushu krito nisangatvaya kalpate. So it says association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage. But the same type of association performed with a saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. So this is about man's association with a woman and a woman's association with man. So not all men are condemned, not all women are condemned. If they are saintly people, then association with them can lead to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. So this is what this statement is describing, the tathya, the factual truth. And some other statements where all women or all men are critiqued. So those statements start falling in the category of Artha-vada. Statements which have very exaggerated numbers, like, but some of those statements may be Artha-vada, but some may not be. For example, this is described about in the final chapter of the 10th canto. Maharaj Ugrasen's bodyguards are described. So it is said, how many trillions of bodyguards he had. In the commentary, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifies that I will pull out that verse, about Shri Ugrasen, Maharaj Ugrasen. In the commentary to this particular section, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that, it is not an over exaggeration. Let me see. Yeah, this is the verse 10.90.42. I'm sharing with you. Sankhyanam Yadavanam Kaha Karishyati Mahatmanam Yatrayutanam Ayuta Lakshenaste Sa Ahukaha. So, who can count all the great Yadavas when amongst them King Ugrasen alone was accompanied by an entourage of 30 trillion attendants? If somebody 30 trillion means it's greater than the population of that the earth ever had. So, how can Maharaj Ugrasen alone have 30 trillion attendants? So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out the term Aste. Aste, basically, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that it is a form of present tense, and he says that this means that Sri Shukadeva Goswami is ending the 10th canto, and while ending the 10th canto, in his samadhi, he is directly looking also at the attendants in the spiritual world. So while looking at the attendants in the spiritual world, he is saying that he has an entourage of 30 trillion attendants. So he's seeing according to the attendants which are also present in the spiritual world. If this is the case, then it is not Artha-vada. But if it in some other numbers, there is a possibility of Artha-vada being there. So this is, in general, this is what it is. In the 5th canto, distances also, because 5th canto is Yogi Pratyaksha. Recently, I wrote an article about it, that 5th canto, the 5th skanda, is about Yogi Pratyaksha. It is only perceivable by the details of the Vedic cosmology are only perceivable by a yogi who has samyama on the Surya Nadi. I had specified this in the article. So it is only visible in Yogi Pratyaksha. And some distances may be given. But whether those distances actually work out in Yogi Pratyaksha or they don't work out, it cannot be said from an ordinary Pratyaksha point of view right now. So from statement to statement, we will have to determine whether it is Artha-vada or not. So that is the answer to your query. I hope that satisfies your query. Thank you.
Next we have Shreya Saini Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvar Pranam. I'm very grateful to you for clearing all the doubts. Prabhuji, I have a very small doubt. Like after completing our prescribed rounds, so when we do our extra rounds, so we do when we go outside, we keep talking and we do some works, and also we do extra rounds on our beats. So some people says ki it's not good, it's an aparadh, ki we keep on doing something else and still we are chanting, or drinking something while doing rounds. So all these things are is it Namaparadha while doing our extra rounds, or we can do this?
So the thing is, there are two different terms. One is japa, one is kirtan. So japa, which means you are chanting on beats and there is a sankhya, there is a certain number that you are supposed to chant. So, and that is supposed to be chanted softly. Japa is mainly soft utterance of Bhagavan's Naam. It is called Upamshu Japa. Upamshu means only you are supposed to hear. This is Japa. For Japa, some recommendations are there for Hare Krishna Mahamantra Japa, that try not to chant it with inattention. If inattention is there, inattention turns into one of the aparadhas at the end of Namaparadhas, because it is also an offense to be inattentive. So that is also there in the original Sanskrit. So inattention becomes an aparadha. But if inattention is not there, then there are no other rules. There. See, I am speaking exactly what is there in Shastra. Inattention is an aparadha. As long as you are avoiding inattention, till that point of time, other rules are not there. But in general, I will give a recommendation from my side. Recommendation is, after you have finished your prescribed rounds, why not engage in kirtan? Kirtan means your hand doesn't have to be in the bead bag. And you can chant what is your abhiruchitam nama. Have you heard of this term, abhiruchitam nama? No. So abhiruchitam nama means, amongst the infinite names of Bhagavan, which name is dear to you? Can you please give one or two names that are dear to you? Can you unmute and please give one or two names that are dear to you? Are you able to? Just a minute. Just a minute. You are not able to. Yeah.
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 Yes.
Huh.
One that name is Gopinath.
Okay.
Gopinath, and one is Mukunda and
Okay.
Rishikesha.
Wonderful. So,
Rishikesh.
yeah. And any kirtans of any Naam kirtans that are dear to you? Can
Yes,
you name?
Prabhuji. That one is ki Hey Gopinath, Mama Nivedan Suno. That I love so much.
So wonderful. So that is recommended by the previous acharyas. I will share a verse with you. This verse is in 11th Vilas of Hari Bhakti Vilas, verse number 401. Brahmanda Puran. Sarvartha Shakti Yuktasya Deva Devasya Chakrinah Yaccha Abhiruchitam Nama Tat Sarvartheshu Yojayet. Sarvartha Shakti Yuktasya, of that Lord who has all potencies. Deva Devasya, of the Lord of all Lords. Chakrinaha, of the Lord who holds a chakra in his hand. Which Lord? Shri Krishna. Yaccha Abhiruchitam Nama. Amongst his names, whatever is your Abhiruchitam, your dearmost name. Tat, that Nama, Sarva Artheshu Yojet, employ it in all your activities. So, this is a direct recommendation. So, this is also specified in Chaitanya Charitamrita. What does Chaitanya Charitamrita say? I will let me try to find out. Yeah. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said, Khaite Shuite Yatha Tatha Namlay. So this is what it is. Here it is. Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela, 20th chapter, verse number 18. Khaite Shuite Yatha Tatha Namlay. Desh Kala Desh Niyam Nai Sarva Siddhi Hai. Now you only please read the translation.
Regardless of time or place, one who chants the holy name, even while eating or sleeping, attains all perfection.
So you are asking about while drinking, while eating. So this is about mainly about kirtan. Please try to understand. This is mainly about kirtan. Kirtan means asankhya. There's no sankhya here. So sankhya you have completed. The number you have completed. After you have completed your number according to certain recommendations given by the Guru, then for Naam the recommendations are not there. Shastra only doesn't give any recommendation. So Abhiruchitam Nama. Select your favorite Naam Kirtan and sing it out throughout the day. Now, does it sound easier for you?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So this
Prabhuji,
yeah.
You're saying ki attentively we have to do our rounds, right?
Yes.
But we know that ki still we are just trying to do our rounds attentively, but still we are inattentive somewhere. We are not
Right.
doing it attentively. So that means ki we are not completing our prescribed rounds. So what we can do?
No, you are completing the Sankhya. Sankhya means the utterances, number of utterances you are completing. But you are some of those rounds may not be done with avadhan. Avadhan means attention. They are done with anavadhan or inattention. For that, some remedies have to be taken. What remedies? Will gradually come to those. Why are we chanting with inattention? When we come to the root of that, why are we chanting with inattention? Then we will come to understand gradually how to get rid of that inattention. Now, please answer a very simple question. Which person do we neglect in our lives?
Prabhuji, neglection.
Which person do we neglect in our lives?
Normally, Prabhuji, normally we whom we neglect.
Yeah.
Maybe whom we love, or sometimes we neglect them also. Sometimes.
No, I'm saying in general in
People
our
we
life.
don't care about.
Yeah. Whom do
we don't care about?
Yeah. So how do we develop that feeling of affection and care towards Bhagavan? So that thing is going to come up in this verse. Adarat anudinam. How to develop adar towards Harinam. So that is gradually going to come up. But doesn't mean that you have not chanted those rounds. You chanted the Sankhya. You chanted the Sankhya. But how to add adar to the Sankhya? That will also come up gradually. So we'll take it up, that discussion, because it's a separate discussion in itself. So at this point
Yes,
of time, it's not feasible to get into that direction, but definitely we will come to that as and when during the progression of this particular verse. So I hope that satisfies your query.
yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
You quoted from the Upanishads, speak the truth, satyam bruyat. And then, sorry, he also explained how the Vedas will exaggerate. So are the Vedas not being truthful? Are they being hypocritical?
All right. So that statement, Satyam Vada, Dharmam Chara, that was a Vidhi Vakya. Vidhi Vakya means it was an injunction. Because Vada is from grammar, Vada is injunction. It is basically, what is it called? Vidhiling. So,
Imperative.
Imperative. So similarly, it is specifying a vidhi. So, but other statements which are not having vidhiling, which are not having the grammatical imperative tense, they may have Artha-vada. Now, if they have Artha-vada, are the Vedas hypocritical if they are not speaking the direct, statements? So it's not that. The Vedas know that different people get motivated by different types of teachings. So therefore the Vedas teach in different ways. There's a very nice verse in the Hari Lilamritam of Vopadev, and I will try to point out from Hari Lilamritam of Vopadev. It's a very nice verse. Where is it? Yeah. Vedaha Puranam Kavyam Cha Prabhur Mitram Priyevacha. Yes, here it is. I will share my screen and I will show you this verse. Very nice. Vopadev was a very great Vaishnava from Maharashtra, and his disciple Hemadri Pant is mentioned by Shri Jiva Goswami in Tattva Sandarbha. Very learned Vaishnavas. So he says, Vedaha Puranam Kavyam Cha. He takes three categories of literature. First is Vedas, second is Puranas, and third is Kavyam, poetry. These three. Prabhur Mitram Priyevacha. First is like Prabhu, is like a master. Vedas instruct like a master. Puranas instruct like a friend. And poetry instructs like a beloved, a lover. Priya. Bodhayanti iti prahus. But Trivad Bhagavatam Puna. Srimad Bhagavatam instructs in all three ways. This glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Vedas sometimes instruct like a master. Now, a master, sometimes Master Prabhu also means somebody who's a senior. Now, our seniors, if we have seen in our lives, sometimes our seniors have given us some incentives for doing something. So, similarly, the Vedas also give some statements of incentivization, some incentive statements, which may fall under the purview of Artha-vada. But do we say that just because our parents gave us some incentives or our superiors showed us some incentives, does it mean, but those incentives could not be realized later, does it mean that they are hypocrites? The answer is no. I'll give an example from my own life. When I was in the 10th grade, my mother said, just clear 10th grade with good marks and your life will be perfect. So I said, all right. Like all Indian parents, they ask their children, they say these things to their children. Just clear your 10th grade with good marks, your life will be perfect. I said, all right, you'll be happy. So I cleared. And I've given this example before. Then after that, I cleared my 12th grade and then my degree. And till today, I am still searching for happiness. So is it hypocritical to say like this? Or we also, every parent tells their children, now you're a parent. At some point of time, you will also end up saying something that if you don't study, nicely, then the future is not so good. So, but aren't we exaggerating? There are many people who have not studied, but have a very bright future. But sometimes we do exaggerate some things in front of our children. So are we being hypocritical in front of our children, Rameshwar Mahaprabhu? Or are we caring for them?
We're caring for them.
That's what the Vedas are doing. At the end of the day, the Vedas are not impelling you to commit any sinful activity. That is the main thing. They are impelling you on the path of dharma, on a very holistic path. So that is what has to be taken into consideration. All right.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
It reminds me of the discussion on Vajravegam and the balance between speaking the truth, speaking beneficially,
Right.
and speaking in a pleasing way. There's kind of some nuance there.
Thank you.
You already covered it very masterfully. Next we have Dipayan. Oh, did we already go with Dipayan Prabhu? Okay. Samarapana Gopa Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam.
My pranams.
Very grateful for such deep word by word understanding of the most deepest book of NOI. I'm very grateful. First time I am attending, but I heard it. So my question may not be appropriate for today, but nevertheless I will try to ask because it was discussed to some extent. It's about attention. So what exactly it means to be attentive when we chant Hare Krishna? So if we are remembering, means what exactly it means to be attentive? If we are remembering the mood of some Vaishnava song or some verse of Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, so is it in attention or what exactly it means to be in attention? What Shastra says? Or what is the understanding?
You're asking about attention or inattention?
You can tell both if it is okay for you. Or
because see, what is inattention? What is inattention will come up in a future because there is one of the aparadhas is to be inattentive. So that will come up in the future. But what is attentive, not only attentive, but respectful, adarat, is also going to come up. Because we have not yet begun on that in that direction as to what is adar. There is a whole discussion on what is adar of Harinam, how to respect Harinam. What are the important factors that Shastra says we should have while chanting Harinam. And I will not impose anything from my mind. Whatever I will give from the Shastra. And Sri Sanatan Goswami, Gopal Bhatt Goswami will give all the good recommendations. That which has worked for them will also work for us. We don't have to invent anything new. But these things will come up gradually. You will have to wait till we complete another. So another, please carefully hear all the parts where another has been discussed. And as soon as another is done, then we will come to other. And how to give other to Shri Harinam, that will definitely come up. But if I start specifying now, it will be another session in itself. And I don't have the presentation ready for it. So ideally, I'd like to show it with the presentation. So I hope, you'll wait for a future session.
Surely, Puji.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Dipayan Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I also had the same question as Radhika Vallabh Prabhu only. Just only in the previous question I gave that Chaitanya Charitamrita example because that's what came to my mind. But in general, when we study Shastras and so many different things come up, is there some criteria by which we can understand what is Artha-vada, what is not Artha-vada, where to take Mukhya Vritti? Or like you said, case by case, we have to discuss and see all commentaries and no general some indication is there. That's what.
I will give you an indication about when to accept Mukhya Vritti, the main meaning of a statement, and when to accept Gauna Vritti, the secondary meaning. It is specified in Shastra that Mukhyartha-vadhe, when the main meaning is obstructed, at that time you have to take Gauna Vritti, the secondary meaning. So only when the main meaning gets obstructed, that is when you have to take the secondary meaning. The example given by the previous acharyas is Gangayam Ghoshaha, a village on the Ganga. Now, by any logical sense, can a village exist on the waves of the Ganga? The answer is no. Artha-vada, the main meaning has been completely obstructed. There is no way in which the direct statement can be explained. Since the main meaning has been obstructed, now you take the secondary meaning. A village on the banks of the Ganga is the secondary meaning. So when there is no main meaning possible, Artha-vada, Gaunartha, then you take secondary meaning. That is the general answer to your query. So I hope that satisfies your query.
Can I ask a follow-up or should I wait?
Let others ask, then you can come back, right?
Okay. Yes, bro.
Next we have Matav Tripati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, this is just in conjunction with what was asked by Vishwadeep Prabhu. So as he quoted this purport from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Prabhupada says that it's from the Narsimha Purana. So this is like you gave two ways to reconcile it. However, like some scholars also reconcile such statements in Shastra in a different way. Like they bring out the theory of interpolations, that some Shastras are interpolated. Even Madhvacharya like speaks about it in Mahabharata, right? But how do we like? Can you shed some light on this whole interpolation theory, and how can we know whether something is truly interpolated? Like Bhavishya Purana is like often said that it's interpolated. So how do we know what exactly is interpolation and not?
The thing is about interpolation, there is a technical name to the term interpolation. It is called prakshep or prakshipta. That is what it is called in Sanskrit, prakshep or prakshipta. Our acharyas, the Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas, have mostly not ventured in the direction of calling anything as interpolated. Mostly. Certain places, some acharyas have said. Once I remember faintly, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had said that some portions are interpolated. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in Krishna Samhita, some portions were added in Shastra later. All right, those are examples of some acharyas saying like that. Other than that, specific sections were added, or this part of Shastra is not bona fide. These all things are not, the Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas don't get into this. The 6 Goswamis at least. If they know that a certain literature is interpolation, they will rather not quote it. I hope you're able to understand. I'll give you one example of this. The 6 Goswamis never quote from a literature named Garga Samhita. You will never find a single quote from the Garga Samhita in the literature of the 6 Goswamis. Now, but there are quite a few strange stories about Radha Krishna given in there. Some very strange. Srimati Radharani cursed somebody, then they fell down in the material world, and so, something like that. Some stories are there. Now, the Goswamis know that some stories are clearly kalpit. Kalpit means they have been inserted. But why make unnecessary controversy about it? Some people have the habit of composing new Shastra and giving it in the name of Vyasadeva or Gargamuni, etc. The Goswamis never wanted to stoke any controversy, and therefore the Goswamis, as long as it is not directly against Vaishnavism, as long as it is not directly speaking against Krishna, Vishnu Tattva or Vaishnavas, or directly against Bhakti, but if it is some interpolation, the Goswamis would rather not quote that Shastra. So that is the approach of the 6 Goswamis. But there is one literature which has no interpolation within it, that is Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Goswamis made that literature as the crux of their theology, as the crux of their philosophy, and they quoted everything that is favorable to the Bhagavatam around it. So that is what it is. Because once we start getting into this direction, this is interpolation, this is not interpolation, then where do we stop? There are many modern scholars who have done that. They have tried to do that. But the end result of this is not that somebody improves in their bhakti. The end result of this is that a person is left with more doubts than what they began with. Therefore, the acharyas are very clear. The Srimad Bhagavatam is Amal Purana. Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam. Amal means, one meaning of Amal is there is no mal. there is no external dirt inserted in this one. So once you have the Amal Puran, which has no interpolations, and it is protected by Srila Sridhar Swami's commentary, the commentary did a brilliant task of protecting the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you have your mainstay. Then all other literature can be centered around this one literature. That is what it is. All right.
Yes, Prabhuji, but like if somebody brings this up, what should be our reaction?
Our reaction should be the same, that if it is anukul to Bhagavad Bhakti, even if it is somebody's interpolation or something, if it is anukul to Bhagavad Bhakti, we don't have to speak against it. We can just, keep quiet about it, because it might have been interpolated at a certain point of time. We know, we don't know. There is no certainty about it. Can somebody say for sure that this was some sections you can say this was clearly interpolated, but some other sections you cannot say clearly whether this was interpolated or not interpolated. So you will always remain within the domain of uncertainty. And why to dig up that domain? Better to be in the domain of certainty, which you know for sure is not interpolated. Why not stick to that Shastra? So that is what it is. Is anything interpolated in Srimad Bhagavatam?
No, Prabhuji.
And then you have your mainstay. Right?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I think Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu handed over to me. He privately
Sure.
texted me.
Sure.
So we'll go to Ananga Mohan Prabhu.
Yeah.
I have asked to unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Naam.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, you have shown that the mantras starting with Om and Kleem and ending with Nama, like that, should not be chanted loudly. But we've seen that starting the Bhagavatam class, the other Shakshar mantra is chanted loudly, and everyone is allowed to chant that mantra. So, how to understand this scenario?
Can be understood as an exception that was made by an Acharya. It is not an all-time rule which is followed in all the assemblies of Srimad Bhagavatam. In India, if you go everywhere in Bhagavatam lectures, it's not a common practice everywhere in India. It's only a common practice within a specific institution. It should be understood as an exception, apavad. But it is not a general practice recommended throughout all the Bhagavatam schools of India. So that is how it can be understood.
And for the other mantras, it should not be chanted loudly.
A mantra should not, in general, a mantra should not be chanted loud. Mantra is received from a guru. It has a bija, kleem, reem, etc. And the guru explains the bija, the meaning of the mantra, when the guru is giving the mantra. That is what the guru does. So unless you have received the meaning of the mantra from the guru, just taking it from a book, how will you understand the meaning of the mantra? Let's say you hear also a mantra. So how will you understand the meaning of the mantra? So that has to come from a guru. The meaning of the mantra comes from a guru. So all of that has to be taken care of before we utter a mantra. Also, regarding chanting of mantra, there is a very clear warning given about chanting incorrectly. Mantra hina swarita varnatova mithya prayuktam natarma arthamaha savag vajro yajamanam hinasthi yathendra shatru swarito parakat. In the Bhagavatam 6th canto, let me pull out the reference. Sri Jiva Goswami quotes from the Mahabhashya of Patanjali. Not 6th canto. This is 8th canto. Let me pull out from the 8th canto. This is from the Vritrasur.
Vritrasur is in 6th.
6th, sorry. Yeah, 6th canto, yeah. So I'll pull out from this. Yeah, sorry, it was actually 6th canto. Mithya prayuktam natamarthamaha. So vajro yajamanam hinasthi yathendra shatru swarito paradhat. Where is it? Anyways, so I'll try to find this verse. This is from the Mahabhashya of Patanjali that Sri Jiva Goswami quotes in his commentary, in his Krama Sandarbha commentary. And he says that, yeah, here it is. I will actually Sridhar Swami and Sri Jiva Goswami also. Here it is, 6th canto. This is from 6-9-11. So this Tvashta, Indra Shatro Vivardhasva. This is the mantra, that he was uttering, so that Indra will be killed. So Tathacha Shikshayam. And the Shiksha literature says, this is referring to Paniniya Shiksha, Panini Shiksha, and to Mahabhashya of Patanjali. So this is given in the Mahabhashya of Patanjali. Mantro hinah swarato varnato va mithya prayukto natam arthamaha sa vag vajro yajamanam hinasti yathendra shatru swarato paradhat. Mantro hinah, if a mantra is devoid of swara, of even a single vowel, varnato va, or single syllable, mithya prayukto, it is then uttered in vain, uselessly uttered, it becomes. Natam arthamaha, it will not give the desired result. So vag vajro, it is like a vajra, it is like a weapon, yajamanam hinasti, which will harm the person who is uttering incorrectly. Yathendra shatru swarato paradha. Just look at the example of the term Indra shatru, how it gave an opposite result because of mispronouncing it. So the details are specified in the commentary. Indra shatru padasya adi udattatvat. It is adi udatta. So the Indra, the ikar in Indra is udatta. So, those details of udatta, anudatta, and swarita are given in the commentaries by the commentators. So, if Panini Sutras are Uchchair Udatta, Nichair Anudatta, Samahara, Swarita. These are the 3 sutras for swaras given in Panini's Ashtadhyay. One has to understand this, and mantras have these swaras. So, one has to utter mantras according to proper swaras. So, that is also there. Veda mantras have swaras in them. So, all without understanding all these, people just they just pronounce the mantras, then they may get some opposite result. That is mentioned there, right?
Oh, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bhavya Bhagwan Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you once again. Prabhuji, my question is regarding the Abhiruchit Naam. So, Prabhuji, the Abhiruchit Naam, that should pertain to only Krishna, or it could be in relation to Radharani, Mahaprabhu, Nityanand Prabhu, or maybe Narsimha, Ram. And Prabhuji, one more thing, like if it's pertaining to Krishna only, so should it be Radha Govinda, Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Shyam Sundar, or it should be Govinda, Krishna, Madan Mohan, or how is it gonna be, Prabhuji? If you can, and how is it revealed? Is it Swayameva Suratyada, or how do we understand this is my Abhiruchit Naam, Prabhuji?
Hare Prabhu, what is your Abhiruchit food? How do you understand? Do you read a Shastra to understand what is your Abhiruchit food?
No, Prabhuji.
Then how do you understand what is your favorite food? Do you look in some Shastra?
Not really.
Then what do you do to understand your favorite food?
Have you tasted?
Obviously. So when it says Abhiruchit, means it is according to your, personal ruchi that you experience while you chant and remember that Naam. That is what Abhiruchit Naam is. The freedom has been given to you. Even after giving the freedom, if you are asking what are the rules, but then why did they give you freedom? They gave you freedom so that you could decide. And if you want to see, if your question about names of other forms of Bhagavan, so Acharyas have also given names of other forms of Bhagavan. Vibhavari, Shesha, Aloka, Pravesha. And then Narsimha Vamana, Sri Madhusudana, Rajendra. And in that same Putana Ghatana, Kaitaba Shayatana, and immediately after Jai Dasharathi Ram. From Krishna Lila to Ram Lila. These Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is, making a transition within that very line. So, that is Abhiruchit Naam, right? That is how he made the song. Now, I'll ask you a question, Bhave Bhagwan Prabhu. How did Bhaktivinoda Thakur make that song? Based on which Shastra?
From his inclination and love for that.
Wonderful.
So
You have the answer
so
to your question.
When Bhaktivinoda Thakur composed Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari Gopi Jan Vallabha Girvadhar, so here he is including so many Abhiruchit Naam, so there could be multiple Abhiruchit Naam, or it should be only one, I mean.
There could be multiple Abhiruchit Naam. That is okay.
Okay. ठीक है प्रभु. Thank you so much.
So
प्रभु.
do you like
Thank
only
you for-
one eatable, or you have multiple eatables that you like?
Yeah, it differs from the cuisines, Prabhuji.
Oh, wonderful. You have a wide variety of choice. Nice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll force you
Thank
to
you so
like
much.
only. Otherwise, we'll force you to like only one food item. Should we do that?
Yeah. That will, I mean, I'll get bored.
Oh, wonderful. Now you understand how Abhiruchit Naam works. Chalo. Wonderful. Let's move ahead.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, so the example that you gave of the village on top of Ganga, that is like very obvious. It doesn't make any sense. But the other examples, which Radhika Vallabh Prabhu also discussed and which you showed in class also. So, like he spoke about that many wives of Chitraketu Maharaj. You addressed the 10th canto about the followers of Ugrasen Maharaj. So you have given an explanation that if Shukdev Goswami in Samadhi is seeing the spiritual world, so it is correct only.
Right.
Because I have heard your class now, so I understood this. But
Wonderful.
the general person who has not heard this, he will not understand only, because the translation of Acharya is saying that that many number of wives or that many number of followers. So in
Right.
such case, how do we know the Mukhya or the Gauna? And the example that you showed from 5th canto, forest of material enjoyment. Now that is something that can devastate people's lives if they take the Mukhya thing, correct?
Right.
So in this, if you can shed some light.
See, the thing is, people who don't understand the nuances of Shastra should not try to get into understanding the detailed meanings of Shastra. Somebody who understands the fine nuances of Shastra, how Shastra works, that person is supposed to resolve a query for us. And otherwise, if we with our somebody who has only half knowledge, if they try to make sense of the situation, they will not be able to make sense of the situation. So it's very important to understand that without having proper Shastriya understanding, without having the basis of Shastra, there are certain literature which one has to understand in order to understand what is Shastra. Many times, and I want to specify this, often amongst many devotees, they make it a point to trivialize grammar. They make it a point to trivialize grammar. Without a knowledge of the basic structure and meaning of words, can one claim to understand what that particular Shastra is saying? I will ask you a simple question, Deepayan Prabhu. Can you understand Shakespeare without understanding English grammar?
No.
Wow. And then you can understand Shastra without Sanskrit grammar? For that, many devotees will say yes. To understand the entirety of Shastra, Shastra is Veda. And to understand Veda, Vedanga has been given. The 6 limbs of Veda have been given. And I specified the 6 limbs of Vedas in the previous talk. One of the Mukham Vyakaranam, Veda speaks through the mouth of grammar. In Vakya Padiyam of Bhartrihari, he specifies in the Brahma Kanda, Tatvavabodha Shabdanam Nasti Vyakaranad Ritehe. Tattva Avabodha Shabdanam. The Tattva, the truth behind words, na asti, is not with somebody who is Rite, who is devoid of Vyakarana. So somebody who is devoid of the subtleties, the nuances of grammar, cannot understand Tatvavabodha Shabdanam. Now let me, you said that, when you heard from me, about the servants of Maharaj Ugrasen, and then you came to understand what was. Well, I also, it was Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary to that particular verse. He had specified this, and I will quote that particular verse, and I will show you the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Let me share that my screen with you. This is 10.90.42. This is Yatra Ayutanam Ayuta Lakshen Aste. So Ahuk, and this Aste is the term which is important. And now Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the commentary, you see here. See here. Sorry, it is Shri Jiva Goswami. Asid iti vaktavye. Asid means actually Srila Shukdev Goswami should have said Asid, past tense. But Aste, he is not using past tense. Iti Nitya Lila Spurtya. He is speaking from Nitya Lila Spurti. So now somebody who does not understand what is Asid and what is Aste. Now, how do you understand, Deepayan Prabhu, what is Asid and Aste? Please tell me.
I should know Sanskrit.
Obviously.
Otherwise, I cannot understand.
So, these, if you are getting into the details of Mukhya Vritti, Gauna Vritti, how do I know whether it is Mukhya Vritti or Gauna Vritti? You have to understand certain Vedangas. You have to have certain background in the culture of Shastra. Without this, you will not be able to make an independent decision. That is what it is.
Yes, bros.
Can you cross over a river with a broken boat?
No.
So our boat is not proper. The boat is made out of proper knowledge of how to understand Shastra, and learning grammar is one of the parts of it. How long should we trivialize? I said in the previous, trivializing Sanskrit grammar will not give any benefit. It's one of the Namaparadhas. It's Vedanga. It is. Vyakaran is one of the Vedangas. So it will not give any benefit. In all the commentaries of the Acharyas or Jiva Goswami or anywhere, have you seen any trivialization of grammar or any limb of the Vedas?
No.
That is what it is. So the more we learn, the more we will understand. And until we do not understand, we should approach somebody who understands. So that is what it is. When I studied that section on Chitraketu Maharaj's wives, I first looked through all the commentaries and saw if any of the Acharyas has any explanation to give. But none of them had any explanation on this particular point. So there is an indication there that it might be an Artha-vada. All right.
And just one, should I ask or should I wait?
There's one devotee waiting. Anang Mohan Prabhu is waiting.
Yes.
Maybe
yes.
Deepayan Prabhu,
Yes.
you can ask in the group, and
Okay.
if there's one question remaining, we'll go to Anang Mohan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You have already clarified that regarding the Sankhya-vada, that the numerical stand should be maintained, and according to the Guru Janas or your Guru, whatever we instructed, you should chant that much names. But there is one in Shri, this Chaitanya Bhagavata, Antya Khanda. It is regarding the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that I would take the foodstuffs in the devotee's home who is chanting the 1 lakh names. And in the commentary, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur is saying that who is chanting Lakshanam every day, the service in the home of those the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is taking the foodstuffs and taking their service. So how to understand this, Prabhuji?
This is called Laksheshwar. Laksheshwar means one who, Lakpati, one who chants 1 lakh names every day. In his home, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will accept prasadam. Right? So,
Yeah.
Prabhu, in your home, in my home, if I am not chanting 1 lakh names, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will not accept prasad. Am I correct?
I don't know, Prabhuji.
What will happen to Krishna's statement? Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati. You see how statements of a specific context are presented as barriers to general statements. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 2 considerations while taking prasadam. Not only one, he had 2 considerations. I will specify both the considerations. One consideration you specified. Second consideration is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to eat at the home of a person who is born in a Brahmana family. Now, how will you change that? Sometimes only one consideration is specified. The other consideration is not specified. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would only eat in the home of a person born in a Brahmana family. Shri Haridas Thakur is not Laksheshwar, he is Laksheshwar. 3 lakh names he chants every day. Is there any mention in Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavata of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eating from the hands of prasadam cooked by Haridas Thakur? No. So he has 2 considerations. First is he will eat at the home of a person who is born in a Brahmana family, because the sannyasi is supposed to eat like that. Second thing, he will eat at the home of a person who is a Laksheshwar. Now, in all good sense, if we have taken second initiation, or even if we have not, if we have achieved the qualities of a Brahmana, we offer our bhoga to the Guru Parampara, many of whom are Laksheshwars. So our Guru Parampara stays at our home with us. Right? So please do not say that Laksheshwars don't stay at your home and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will not accept food at your home. Because Shri Rupa Goswami is there on your amongst your deities. Is Shri Rupa Goswami there? Yes?
Yeah.
He is born in Yajurvediya Brahman Gotra. Brahman Kul. And Sanatan Goswami, same Yajurvediya, Shukla Yajurvediya Brahman Kul. Laksheshwar, Sanatan Goswami. Now, if you offer to Sri Sanatan Goswami, and then Sri Sanatan Goswami invites Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will Chaitanya Mahaprabhu come take at your home? Yes or no?
Definitely.
Therefore, we place Guru Parampara when we offer Bhoga to Bhagavan. That is what it is. Alright? So please don't worry about these things, because most people are unqualified from the birth point of view. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu needs that point of view also when he is accepting prasad. He is accepting some foodstuffs. That is what it is. In Varanasi, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to accept food only at the home of a Maharashtrian Brahmana. There was a Marathi Brahman in Varanasi. It is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Maharashtriya Brahman. And he was a very close associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And only at his home, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted prasad. Right? It's mentioned. All right. I hope that satisfies your query.
Thank you, sir, so much, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful reconciliation. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Prabhuji?
Sure, why not?
If there's time.
Yeah, I have ample time.
So, Prabhuji, I really liked your previous questions answer, that those who have good understanding of the Vyakarana and other things, or good understanding, they should go. Otherwise, I really appreciated that point, that it doesn't make sense to, go into these aspects which are a little bit Artha-vada. First, we need to understand the basic principle of Shastra. That is,
right.
I really, really like that point.
Right. First is that Shastra is written in a specific language. We should understand Shastra in the language of that Shastra. because many things are lost in translation. Many things are lost in translation. So, since many things are lost in translation, therefore, unless we touch the original terms of Srimad Bhagavatam or any Shastra that we are reading in the original language, till that time, it will become difficult for us to relish the deeper meanings. Now, I'm not saying without proof. There is also proof given in the purports of Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada often, said, he used to quote that yes, I will share my screen with you, and Prabhu, you only can read this thing. Yeah, just this one, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta from here, Prabhu. Can you please read?
Sure. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj used to say, the time will come when the people of the world will learn Bengali to read Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are trying to present Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita in English and do not know how successful it will be. But if one reads the original Chaitanya Charitamrita in Bengali, he will relish increasing ecstasy in devotional service.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So on one hand, we say Srila Prabhupada's books have everything. When we read Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada encourages us to read also in the original language. In this way, Prabhupada's books have everything, because Prabhupada's books encourage us to read the originals. It's very clearly mentioned there that in order to understand relish increasing ecstasy in devotional service, one has to read Chaitanya Charitamrita in the original language. And for that, how can one read Chaitanya Charitamrita in the original language if one is simply dependent on the translations? So anybody who is taking help only of translations will have some sort of a handicap in comparison to anybody who is reading the original language. So that is very obvious. Yes, Prabhu, you wanted to say something more?
Yes, Prabhuji. So my question was, so very wonderful, Prabhuji, kind of provides a good context for the question that we sometimes see, and you yourself mentioned the scenario where somebody inspired somebody to chant 192 rounds and on Nirjala Ekadashi, or sometimes we see devotees maybe in good enthusiasm with good intention. The intention is definitely proper or very properly placed to collect, maybe some donations or to inspire devotees to do certain activities. They will take out a verse and popularize it, and those devotees, the hundreds of devotees who are listening, may not be so even basic, have a good understanding of the Shastra. So is it right to understand that there is also some responsibility on those who are making these kind of statements public in good spirit, should have some balance before, because then we are kind of propagating that understanding, and those other innocent people out there are getting just that meaning, but they don't have this proper understanding. And then when they go further and they say, oh, I didn't get liberated on taking the name, or whatever was presented to them. What could you please?
Yeah.
There needs to be probably some balance in this kind of advertisement intention.
Yeah, the balance has to be, both parties have to take care. The Vakta, the speaker, also needs to have Sarvadeshiya Gyan, knowledge of all aspects of a particular topic. Before they speak something, at least they should have knowledge of a wide range of that particular topic before they speak on something. And I recollect something from my personal life when I was about to give my first talk. Before my first talk, public talk, I went to my Guru Maharaj and I asked him for his instructions and his blessings. So he said something which I very clearly remember. He said that the speaker should have 10 times broader understanding of the subject matter as compared to the average listener. Some listeners may be special, they may have more knowledge, but the speaker should have 10 times greater scope of understanding of the subject matter as compared to the listener. And that really appealed to me, because sometimes the tendency is to give too many lectures. Just take, because you can speak nicely, just take any topic and prepare for half a day and give a talk. But that's sort of an injustice. Sometimes, unfortunately, this happens. Sometimes it also happens that a particular speaker just sits on the stage and say, oh, so what is the verse for today? That is where the preparation begins. So different speakers have different attitudes towards explaining. So it depends on how much the speaker cares for the audience, how much they value the time of the audience. And therefore, speakers generally should prepare nicely, should understand a wide variety of range of the topic that they have selected, and should always remember the formula that they're speaking also to the weakest person in the audience, not only to the strongest person in the audience. Because it is very easy to give lofty and high standards in a speech, whereas the devotees, after they hear everything, if it is not practical for them, they will simply reject it mentally and move ahead. So it's some things which speak, and the listener should also take care that, obviously it was discussed in Upadeshamritam, that a Shravan Guru, a person from whom we hear, should be a person of good caliber. So this came up that Krishneti Yasya Giri Shushrushaya Bhajan Vigya. So they should hear from somebody who is Bhajan Vigya, somebody who has knowledge of the science of bhajan. So that is what it is. And when they come with their personal doubts and queries, that person should be able to give them an answer to their personal doubts and queries. Otherwise, it's like giving paracetamol for every disease, which will cure the immediate suffering, but will not cure the underlying cause. Personal, unconventional guidance whenever needed. That is what this has been discussed previously. So I hope that satisfies your query.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu Prabhu. Yes.
Thank you so much, Paramakarna Prabhu, for taking over. Really appreciate it. And now I'll invite all of the participants to unmute and give a big thank you to Hari Parshad Prabhu.
Thank you, Hari Parshad Prabhu.
Thank you very much.
His grace Hari Parshad Prabhu ki
Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. Dandavat pranam, Prabhuji.
My pranams.
And thank you to all the devotees for coming. We'll see you soon. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.